Clint Eastwood, the legendary actor and director whose career has spanned nearly 8 decades, has always been known for his honesty, his grit, and his unflinching presence on and off the screen. But now, at 95, he has shared a revelation that has stunned fans and film historians alike. The truth about his longtime co-star, Jack Palance. Palance, the towering presence with a voice like gravel and a stare that could unsettle even the bravest, was one of Hollywood's most enigmatic actors. From Shane to City Slickers, he left an indelible mark on cinema. Yet behind the scenes, stories about him have been shrouded in mystery, rumors, and exaggeration. Many wondered, what was he really like when the cameras weren't rolling? And now Clint Eastwood is finally setting the record straight. For decades, the dynamic between these two legends has been a topic of fascination. Eastwood, with his calm, stoic demeanor, and Palance, with his fiery, larger-than-life energy, were thought to be natural opposites. But what was really going on behind the scenes? According to Clint, the truth is far more complex and far more human than fans could have imagined. This revelation doesn't just shed light on Hollywood history, it reveals the nuances of friendship, respect and rivalry between two icons who helped define an era. For fans who have admired Eastwood's honesty and Palance's intensity, this story is both shocking and deeply moving. Clint Eastwood's name is synonymous with Hollywood legend. From the dusty streets of spaghetti westerns to the glamour of modern cinema, he has built a career that few can rival. But behind the stoic eyes and the iconic squint lies a man who has witnessed countless personalities, egos, and dramas behind the camera. Among all the larger-than-life characters he has encountered, one name stands out: Jack Palance. Jack Palance was the kind of actor who seemed to command every room he entered. His towering frame, chiseled features, and gravelly voice made him a natural villain, a menacing presence, and a force that directors and co-stars alike could never ignore. From his early work in Shane to the memorable roles in City Slickers, Palance became known for his intensity, a man whose mere glance could unsettle audiences and fellow actors alike. But beyond the public persona, Palance was shrouded in mystery. Hollywood loved to speculate about his temperament, his methods, and his off-screen personality. Stories of explosive outbursts and eccentric behaviors filled tabloids, but no one had really spoken about the man behind the legend, until now. At 95, Clint Eastwood is finally breaking the silence. Having worked alongside Palance on several projects, Eastwood has seen both the intensity and the humanity of the actor. Contrary to the stories of rage and unpredictability, Clint recalls a man who was deeply committed to his craft, fiercely loyal to his co-stars, and sometimes misunderstood because of his larger-than-life energy. Jack could be intense, sure, Eastwood explains, but what people didn't see was his dedication, his work ethic, and the humor he carried when the cameras weren't rolling. Their dynamic on set was fascinating. Eastwood, with his measured, stoic presence, often contrasted with Palance's fiery energy. While the media painted this as tension, Clint describes it as a perfect balance, a yin and yang that made their collaborations unforgettable. Eastwood's calm demeanor allowed Palance's intensity to shine without chaos, creating scenes that were electric yet controlled. Behind the scenes, their interactions were filled with mutual respect, quiet humor, and an unspoken understanding that both men were committed to their craft above all else. Eastwood also addresses the rumors that have long surrounded Palance. Stories of confrontations and volatile behavior, he says, were often exaggerated or misunderstood. People like to sensationalize, he notes. Jack had a strong personality, yes, but that's what made him a great actor. He wasn't difficult for the sake of it. He was passionate. And that's different from being unreasonable. For Eastwood, the line between legend and myth is clear. Palance's intensity was part of his genius. Not a flaw, the bond they formed went beyond professional collaboration. Clint recalls moments of quiet mentorship, late-night conversations about acting, life, and survival in Hollywood. Palance, with all his bravado, was also a man who valued loyalty and honesty. Eastwood, who himself is known for his candor, appreciated this deeply. Their relationship was not about celebrity or ego. It was about trust, understanding, and a shared dedication to art. As Eastwood reflects on those years, it becomes clear why Palance left such a lasting impression. He was more than a villain on screen. He was a man who demanded excellence, lived boldly, and challenged everyone around him to rise to the occasion. For Clint, Palance wasn't just a co-star. He was a partner in the creative journey, a foil that brought out the best in his own performances, and ultimately, a friend whose memory deserves to be honored honestly. Through these reflections, Clint Eastwood not only reveals the truth about Jack Palance, but also reminds us that legends are often more nuanced than the stories we hear. Behind the intimidating stare and gravelly voice was a man of dedication, humor, and humanity. A Hollywood giant whose legacy is far richer than rumors ever suggested. Working with Jack Palance was never ordinary, and Clint Eastwood remembers it as a mix of challenge, thrill, and unexpected humor. On set, Palance had a reputation that preceded him. Directors whispered about his intensity, tabloids spun tales of wild temper, and co-stars braced themselves for outbursts. Yet Eastwood, having faced decades of Hollywood personalities, knew that the reality was far more complex and far more fascinating. One story that Clint recalls vividly took place during the filming of Pale Rider. Palance, known for his commanding presence, was rehearsing a particularly tense scene. According to reports, the atmosphere was electric, tension high, cameras ready, and every actor on edge. Palance, with his signature gravelly voice and piercing gaze, delivered a performance so powerful that even seasoned crew members stopped in their tracks. What few people knew, however, was that off-camera, Palance began cracking jokes to lighten the mood. People think he was all fire and fury, Eastwood says. But Jack could flip a switch. One moment he was terrifying. The next he had the whole crew laughing. It was part of his genius. There were also moments of sheer unpredictability. During another shoot, a minor disagreement over blocking a scene could have escalated. But Eastwood explains that Palance had an uncanny way of channeling frustration into energy that elevated the scene. He wasn't being difficult, Clint insists. He was pushing himself, pushing everyone to make it better. And if it looked rough, that was the point. Raw emotion is what sells a scene. This duality, the combination of intensity and control, made him a co-star who was both intimidating and inspiring. Yet, it wasn't always about theatrics. Palance also demonstrated a deep professionalism that few recognized. Eastwood recalls long hours where Palance meticulously studied the script, experimented with timing, and improvised lines that made the scenes unforgettable. Jack had a mind for the craft, Clint explains. People see the dramatics, but they forget the work behind it. He lived for that work. His commitment extended beyond acting. He was invested in the success of the project and in supporting his fellow actors. Despite their contrasting personalities, Eastwood calm, Palance fiery, the two found a rhythm. Clint often found himself learning from Palance's energy, while Palance seemed to respect Eastwood's composure. Together, they created a dynamic that elevated their films and gave audiences performances that still resonate decades later. We balanced each other, Eastwood says. I kept him grounded. He pushed me to dig deeper. It worked. There were also moments of vulnerability. Off camera, Palance confided in Eastwood about the pressures of Hollywood, the loneliness of fame, and the constant expectation to perform at the highest level. Clint reflects on these conversations as key to understanding Palance as a person, not just a character. He wasn't the monster people thought, Eastwood says. He was human, complicated, brilliant, and sometimes misunderstood. One particularly memorable incident involved a late-night rehearsal where Palance, exhausted but determined, refused to leave until the scene was perfect. Crew members feared a meltdown, but instead, Palance quietly coached younger actors, offering insights with sharp wit and warmth. Eastwood describes it as a side of him people never saw, mentoring, generous, funny. These stories reveal the truth about Jack Palance, a man whose reputation often overshadowed his humanity. Eastwood's reflections provide a rare glimpse into the man behind the legend, showing that behind the gravelly voice and piercing stare was a performer dedicated to craft, humor, and loyalty. Through these memories, it's clear why Clint Eastwood insists that Palance's legacy deserves more than rumor and exaggeration. The truth is richer, deeper, and far more compelling than any sensationalized story. Beyond the sets, scripts, and cameras, Clint Eastwood and Jack Palance shared a bond that few understood. On screen, they were co-stars. In life, they were comrades navigating the highs and lows of Hollywood together. Their friendship, as Eastwood now reveals at 95, was a delicate balance of respect, admiration, and occasional tension. A testament to two strong personalities learning to coexist in a world that often misunderstood them both. Eastwood describes Palance as a man of extremes. On one hand, he was fierce, commanding, and sometimes intimidating. On the other, he was thoughtful, funny, and surprisingly vulnerable.
Jack could scare the hell out of you with one look, Clint recalls with a chuckle.
And 5 minutes later, he'd be cracking jokes, making everyone laugh. That duality was part of what made him such a brilliant actor and such a fascinating friend. Their friendship wasn't built on constant contact. Unlike many Hollywood duos who spend every waking moment together, Eastwood and Palance connected through shared experiences, mutual respect, and a profound understanding of each other's craft. "We didn't need to be in each other's pockets," Eastwood explains. "We understood what the other valued: honesty, dedication, and a love for the work. That was enough." This understanding allowed them to navigate challenges that might have destroyed lesser friendships. Palance's fiery temperament, often exaggerated by tabloids, could have clashed with Eastwood's stoic nature. Yet Clint emphasizes that there was never malice, only passion. "Jack was intense because he cared," Eastwood says. "And I respected that. I knew that behind the intensity was a man who gave everything to the scene, to the film, to the craft." The pair also shared moments of mentorship. While Eastwood had his own immense experience, he often learned from Palance's fearless approach to acting. Palance, in turn, respected Eastwood's calm precision and ability to command the camera with subtlety. "We balanced each other," Eastwood reflects. "I admired his fire, he admired my steadiness. That mutual respect is rare, and it made us better artists." Off-screen, their interactions were filled with humor and humanity. Eastwood recalls times when Palance would entertain the crew with wild stories of his past, or quietly offer advice to younger actors navigating the pressures of Hollywood. "People thought Jack was scary," Clint says. But the truth is he had a heart. He was loyal, protective, and incredibly generous to those he trusted. There were also moments of vulnerability that deepened their bond. Palance confided in Eastwood about the isolation of fame and the difficulty of maintaining authenticity in an industry obsessed with appearances. Eastwood, who had faced similar challenges, listened and offered quiet support. These exchanges forged a friendship rooted not in ego, but in shared understanding and mutual respect. Eastwood also touches on the bittersweet aspects of their relationship. Hollywood's spotlight can be cruel, and both men experienced misunderstandings, rumors, and pressures that could strain any friendship. Yet, their connection endured because it was based on more than surface-level camaraderie. It was built on the artistry they shared and the trust they developed over years of working together. By finally sharing these insights at 95, Clint Eastwood provides fans with a glimpse into the real Jack Palance, a man who was misunderstood, legendary, and fiercely loyal. Their friendship wasn't always easy, but it was genuine, and it left a lasting mark on both their lives. Through these reflections, we see that the legend of Jack Palance extends beyond the screen. It is intertwined with the story of a friendship that was as complex, intense, and memorable as any role either man ever played. Clint Eastwood, now 95, reflects on Jack Palance not just as a co-star, but as a figure whose presence and approach to life offer lessons that go far beyond Hollywood. Palance's legacy, Eastwood insists, is not merely about the roles he played or the awards he won. It's about the integrity, passion, and authenticity he brought to everything he did, both on and off the screen. One of the most important lessons Eastwood shares is the value of dedication to craft. Palance approached every role with meticulous care and boundless energy. Even when the cameras were off, he remained committed, studying lines, exploring character motivations, and improvising in ways that elevated the entire production. Jack never phoned it in, Eastwood recalls. He treated every scene as if it were the most important moment of his career. That kind of dedication is rare, and it's what made him unforgettable. Another key aspect of Palance's legacy is fearlessness. Eastwood remembers how his co-star could completely immerse himself in a character, taking risks that few actors would dare. Whether it was playing a villain or a deeply complex figure, Palance threw himself into every performance without hesitation. This boldness, Clint explains, is a lesson for anyone pursuing art. Courage and authenticity matter more than perfection. Jack didn't hold back, Eastwood says. He taught me that to truly succeed, you have to take risks and be willing to fail. Humor and humanity were also central to Palance's character. While audiences often saw his menacing glare or intense voice, Eastwood witnessed a different side, one full of laughter, generosity, and empathy. Palance had a rare ability to connect with people behind the scenes, mentoring younger actors and offering wisdom with a wry smile. He wasn't just a star, Eastwood reflects. He was a teacher, a friend, and someone who cared about the people around him. That's the part of him people don't often see. Eastwood also emphasizes the importance of loyalty and respect in Palance's life. In an industry rife with ego and competition, Palance maintained a sense of integrity that earned him deep admiration from those who worked closely with him. He respected fellow actors, directors, and crew, expecting the same in return. This mutual respect created an environment where creativity could flourish, and Eastwood considers it one of the key reasons their collaborations were so successful. For Clint, sharing the truth about Palance at this stage of life is about correcting the misconceptions that have persisted for decades. Hollywood has a way of turning legends into caricatures, exaggerating flaws, and overshadowing humanity. People think Jack was just anger and intensity, Eastwood says, but he was so much more. He was funny, smart, kind, and endlessly committed to what he did. That's the Jack I knew. The lessons from Palance extend beyond acting. They speak to anyone seeking to live a meaningful life. Embrace dedication, confront challenges with courage, value authenticity, and nurture relationships built on respect. Palance's life shows that true greatness isn't only about talent. It's about character, perseverance, and the impact you leave on those around you. In his reflections, Eastwood paints a portrait of Palance as a man whose legacy is both personal and universal. He was more than a screen presence.
He was a mentor, a friend, and a standard-bearer for what it means to live boldly and authentically.
At 95, Eastwood's memories offer fans a rare and intimate view into the man behind the legend, reminding us that the story of Jack Palance is as much about heart as it is about fame. Ultimately, Clint Eastwood's revelations are a tribute to the enduring bond they shared, to the lessons of a life lived with integrity, and to the truth that behind every legend is a human being worth remembering. Jack Palance's fire, humor, and humanity continue to resonate, leaving a legacy that transcends the screen and inspires anyone willing to pay attention.